Hey, it is no secret that everything price-wise is on the rise. Utilities, groceries, eating out, housing, all going up and seeing an increase. And if you're moving to the Norfolk, Virginia area, you're probably comparing what is the cost of living there versus where I live now. We're gonna cover all of that and more today on the Living in Coastal Virginia channel. My name is Dan Inman, your local realtor and guide. Now, if you were comparing where you live now to the Norfolk, Virginia, and there are really kind of three main ways to say this. There's Norfolk, and Norfolk. Those are kind of the three local ways to say it. First two are really just who you're talking to. One of them sounds a little bit like a curse word, and if you see some of the older locals that have been here, it's Norfolk. But compared to the national averages, we are right around 91.8%, and this is all of the cost of living compared against the national average, 91.8%, which is actually decently low considering that, you know, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, they tend to be 1 of 5, 1 of 6. Now we're gonna cover just a few brief topics today, but if you are a super nerd and you love getting into data, there are two great websites I think you should totally check out. One of them is city-data.com and datausa.io. Both of those have awesome analytics if you wanna check out unemployment rates, vacancy rates, if you wanna look at nationality, income levels, housing pricing, per zip code. You can go in there and dig way, way deep. But we're gonna stick a little bit more high level today. Now, Norfolk is an old city. Dates back all the way to 1636 when they first kind of settled in this area. But Norfolk as a city wasn't officially a city until 1736, so a full 100 years later. Now I say that because this is an old city, which means old homes. I personally live in a 1912 4-square style house. Absolutely love old world architecture, but sometimes old world architecture means old homes, which means drafty homes, which means those utility bills are going up. As a whole, Norfolk compared to the average is right around 96-97% of the national average. So if you're in the new housing stock, it might be a little bit better, but if you're in the old housing stock, it might be a little bit worse. So what really impacts this? You're really gonna be looking at several factors. How big is the home? How airtight is it? How new are the mechanicals in the home? If you're heating with oil versus maybe a heat pump or mini split, all of that's going to impact it. But the biggest thing that's gonna impact it obviously is your own comfort level and how you set that thermostat. Now, summers here tend to be quite humid. Springs, fall, absolutely lovely weather and plenty of times where you can open up those windows and let that fresh air come in and out of the house. Winters, kind of drizzly and gross and cold. This winter was a little colder than most. I think we had two good snows, one at like 6 inches, one around 3 or 4 inches, which is a little bit higher than average for us. But summers are humid, which means that you're probably gonna be using the AC often, not just to pull heat out of the house, but all the water out of the air. Now, one quick mention I think is important to understand is if you have a home, let's say a ranch style home, it's highly likely that your air handler is in the attic. With all the moisture it's pulling out of the air, it's going to basically run that across the cool coils and then it's gonna drip to the outside. If it's in your attic, you want to make sure that that condensation drain tube is clear and free of obstructions, because if that thing fills up with water and you don't have an emergency float switch, guess where all that water is going to go? Right into the ceiling. Most good home inspectors are going to inspect this and check it before you purchase. Now, if you're from a major city, let's say DC, Richmond, New York, Los Angeles, any of these areas that have crazy traffic, well, you're in luck because Norfolk really isn't bad at all. If you don't work in, say, like Chesapeake or in the north along the peninsula or Cape, if you're not out in Virginia Beach, your commute is actually gonna be very, very short. According to several websites that study that data in depth, Norfolk actually is about 85% of the average time for commute times across the nation. Which means as long as you live and work in Norfolk, you're not gonna have to pay any of the tolls. If you do end up working in Chesapeake or somewhere along the Cape or along that really long tunnel, you're probably gonna have to start budgeting for an easy pass and paying those tolls. Otherwise, if you stay within Norfolk, your commute's gonna be very short. Traffic is basically gonna be non-existent unless you end up working in some of the other cities. I will mention that the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel is a disaster when it comes to high traffic times, especially on Fridays around 4 to 6 p.m. If you can avoid living in one place or the other and having to traverse that every single day, I would most definitely suggest it. Norfolk actually has a few public transportation options, including the downtown, and then we have bus transport, and there's tons of bike lanes. So if you're into biking to work, those actually will be options for you. When it comes to like Ghent or say North Collie or the downtown area, Freemason area, these are highly walkable areas and you can avoid having to drive a car at all. Now you've seen it, I've seen it, all the food costs across the nation have gone up, and going out to eat probably has been hit the worst. Some of my favorite restaurants out there, it seems like there's always a post out on this outside of the restaurant that, hey, our prices are going up, hey, our prices are going up. It seems to be happening all the time. Now the good news here is that the national average cost is right on par here in Norfolk, actually just a hair below, which means even if you've seen food costs rise and grocery costs rise in your area, if you move here, you're probably not gonna see much of a change. Now, one of the great benefits I think of living in Norfolk, Virginia is that this city in particular probably has the best, largest food selection out of all of the cities. I don't want to detract from Virginia Beach or Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Newport News, Williamsburg, any of those areas. There's good foods there, but I think when it comes to concentration, greatest density per area for great food options, I think Norfolk takes the cake. Now I wanna give you three kind of examples here. So let's say that you're going out, you wanna do a quick order on a burger, you're going out to eat, you're not gonna leave a large tip or a small tip, you're just gonna go pick it up or even potentially do a DoorDash. There's a local place called Sandwiches. There's a local place called Sandwiches, which makes an amazing cheeseburger. It's a huge portion. They actually make some wonderful fries. You can get all of that plus tax and probably be out the door under $12. Another great option, let's say you want to go out to eat and sit down with someone from a coworker from work and you want to grab 2 drinks and maybe a main entree. The Fish and Pig in Norfolk, right there in the center of the commercial area, which is experiencing a ton of revitalization. All kinds of businesses, restaurants, and coffee shops, breweries are coming up in that area. It's right down the street from O'Connor's Brewery. You can probably go there, get 2 drinks, get a main entree for about $30, $32. That would include tip, and you can have a fantastic meal. I will say that they have an excellent in-house, freshly made fried pork skins that if you love those, they are amazing. They come with this dipping sauce. You should totally check that out. But hey, if you really want to dial it up, you want to go someplace super fancy, Norfolk has that option too. Bird and Baldwin Steakhouse is probably the premier steakhouse for the area, or at least for Norfolk, and you can spend a mint here. $15 to $22 for appetizers, $30 all the way up to $140 tomahawk Wagyu ribeye steak if you want to go all out. Your desserts are probably going to be somewhere in the range of $10 to $15. Your drinks are going to be, again, anywhere between $8, probably all the way up to $25. But if you are an incredible wine connoisseur, this probably has one of the greatest wine selections in the area, and you can go all out and go into the multiple hundreds of dollars for bottles of wine there. Now, like you've seen all over the news, inflation has been hitting everybody, and the grocery store is no different. The average cost per person per household is right around the $340 to $350 per person range. Maybe that obviously varies on what your diet looks like and whether you want to get the bougie stuff or if you want to get the basic stuff. There is no shortage on places to go to get groceries. So if you're a Lidl Aldi for the discount place, if you want to go to a Harris Teeter or a Farm Fresh or a Kroger, those exist within short driving distance and nearly anywhere in the city. However, if you're the doomsday prepper and bulk buyer who wants to fill their basement stuff, you've got Costco, Sam's, and BJ's all within a short drive right around the Military Circle area. Now, if you do want to go to a super fancy place or unique place, something like Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, those are in Virginia Beach, but I do have friends that do that all the time. They make the trip all the way out there, and they are available. Now, one of the other major categories that's going to affect your pocketbook is taxes. Everybody's got to pay it. You can't avoid death and you can't avoid taxes. You got to pay both, whether you like it or not. Virginia as a whole, like if you're looking at a holistic picture, sits kind of right there in the middle across the United States. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but let's start talking about the individual taxes. Now, Virginia has a range of income taxes. This is going to be 2, 3, I believe it's 5 and 5.75%, depending on your income range. Sales tax is going to remain this year right around 5.3% for the state. Unfortunately, Norfolk has some of the highest real estate taxes for assessed value. Virginia Beach is almost as low as $1. Portsmouth is at the highest at $1.30 per $100 assessed, and Norfolk is sitting right there at $1.25. Just to give you an example of what that might look like, if you bought a home and it's $400,000, your tax obligation for the year is going to be right around $5,000 per year, or right around $416 a month. Remember that if you have the assessed value of $5,000 and you are buying it significantly above, let's say it hasn't been sold in 10 years, you may want to check to see what your next year's tax obligation is going to be so you're not surprised by the increased tax bill. There is a 1.5% grocery tax and a 26.2% gas tax, but the newly elected governor of the state is looking at getting rid of one of those completely and reducing one, at least for a period of time, to help families out in this time of drastic inflation and increasing costs. Now, if you're looking at moving into the area and putting your kids into public schools, the great thing about property taxes is it covers that for you and you don't have to come out of pocket. There are some good schools in the area here in Norfolk. You want to check out niche.com and greatschools.org. Not only will they show you what the test scores have been for the school, but you can also look at what the local parents who are actively putting their kids into schools are rating the schools at. Now, if you're considering preschool or daycare, this is one of those things, if you're moving out of town, there tend to be really long wait lists for these, and you want to prepare far in advance. I would say at a minimum of 3 months, probably almost up to 6 months, if you are very specific or picky about the school that your kid is in. You're going to want to budget anywhere between $100 to $300 per week per kid, depending on the level of care that you want. Many of these have military discounts, so that's something that you want to bring up or ask for, because we have such a high population of military here and we want to honor and give benefits to those heroes. So definitely make sure that you inquire about that. If you're considering a private school, which a lot of parents do, the actual average, compared to the national averages, we are actually slightly below. Now, there are some very premium or unique schools that command a premium here locally, and some of them as high as almost college tuition. But for some people, they've got to have the best for their baby and they're willing to pay it. Now, if you're looking at making a move or in or out of the area, we would love to be your real estate team and mortgage team of choice. All of our contact information should be over my left shoulder now, and you can jump directly into our calendars with the link below down in the description. Now, housing is the largest portion of everyone's budget. I saved it for last for that reason. So let's talk about housing, rent versus buying, and what the equivalents can be here. Well, the average townhome or condo that is available in Norfolk currently today is right around the $250 to $260 mark. It's about a 7 to 8% rise over last year. If you're looking at single family or detached homes, that's going to be right around the $295 mark. If you don't want to share walls, you got to pay extra, right? So, and that also saw about a 7 to 8% rise year over year. Now, if you've got to have that waterfront view, it comes at a price. The average for both townhomes, condos, and single family is right around $400,000 across the board. Obviously, if you get single family and you have a little bit of land, the ability to plop in a boat down at the end of the dock, it's going to cost more. New construction average across Norfolk, this would include townhomes, condos, and single family, is going to be right around $385,000. It does go up way above that, and there are some options slightly below that, but new construction tends to be right around that average. Homes with an in-ground pool. Now, this is a rarity in Norfolk because we are a low-lying area. You also want to check about flood insurance and elevation certificates. But the in-ground pools, all of them sold last year, the average across the board was around $540,000. Now, there are plenty of options under the $250,000 range. Most of them are going to be in condos and townhomes and single-family homes that are a little bit smaller. So if you're willing to put in the elbow grease or maybe compromise on size or a little bit of condition, then you probably can find an option there. What's really interesting about our area is we have a ton of military. It's one of the largest concentrations of military in the world. And so with that comes the VA loan and also the basic allowance for housing. Now, the basic allowance housing from year over year has only gone up about 3 to 4%. And so when you have housing appreciation that goes up 7 or 8%, but the amount being paid to our military service members is only 3 to 4%, the percentage increase is about double what their increase was for the amount that they can pay. So whoever's out there in charge of that, come on now. So next we're going to look at what does rent look like for 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom homes in comparison to the purchasing options that are available to you, and that will be using 2 loan programs, the 5% conventional and the VA loan. Obviously there's wiggle room there, but it'll give you at least a rule of thumb to go by. Now, 1 bedrooms across the board averaged right around $1,115. The increase year over year was right around 12%, which is a large increase. This can get you about the equivalent of $165,000 to $180,000 in Hampton Roads. That was going to get you again into the lower price point. There will be some options that need a little bit of work and or will be maybe compromising a little bit on the size. Now, if you absolutely must have 2 bedrooms, that increase year over year was 25%. The amount for a 2-bedroom in Norfolk for the current market that we are in is right around $1,380. That will purchase you today about the equivalent of $220,000 to around $250,000. Need 3 bedrooms? That average across Norfolk is around $1,660. Year over year, we saw about a 15% increase there from 2021 to 2022. That will buy you about equivalent of $250,000 to $280,000 in today's market. There are plenty of options that are going to be in this price range, and obviously as you go up, the nicer they become. 4 bedrooms is a must. $1,900 is the average. Year over year, we saw this is the lowest increase, right around 6% increase. This will purchase you about $305,000 to $335,000. Again, as you saw some of the averages above when I went over townhomes, condos, and all that type of thing, you're going to see the higher you go, the nicer the property becomes. But those are the averages and what they could buy equivalent in today's marketplace. Now, if you're starting your search online, I highly suggest you start that as early as possible, maybe even a full year out. Go on our website, start looking at the price points in certain areas. If you need help trying to establish what a healthy budget would look like and create a strategy around that, my wife, Rachel, who is a local lender and is my partner in this, can help you do a strategy call just to set that up. Again, even if it's a full year out, you want to kind of set up the parameters of what's a healthy budget for you. Next, what you're going to want to do is once you start looking at homes and kind of seeing what's in your price range, you'll want to go onto a website called Trulia.com. I know I'm pushing you away from my website, but they have an excellent crime map, and you can go on there and see where the concentrations of crime are and if it's close to the areas that you're looking. Thirdly, you want to pull up Google Maps, and you can virtually walk up and down streets. You'll see the look and feel of the neighborhood, whether there are sidewalks and whether people take care of their homes. You'll even see, depending on the day that the Google car was out capturing this, whether people are out walking their dogs or kids are playing in the street. Lastly, once you've kind of established what neighborhoods are going to fit your profile and what you think is going to fit your lifestyle, you can set up a time to come here and visit. Next, I would suggest setting up a small weekend vacation, maybe a 2, 3, 4 day vacation, where you can come here and drive those neighborhoods. There's nothing that's going to replace what your gut feel is for an area. Around that same time, you can also reach out to our team and we can come up with a custom success plan on how to make that transition as easy and smooth as possible. This video right here is the one you've been looking for your entire life, and you just found it. It's right here.